With me now in the studios is Susan King, the CEO, executive. I want to get the title officially. I mean, you have such a storied history in this community as it relates to food insecurity. So, what is the official title? Saying
Officially President and CEO.
President and CEO. Then I will address you like this, President and CEO. Susan King, what a glorious organization Feeding Northeast Florida is. Give us for those that are listening today that may be familiar or not, give us the elevator pitch of the organization.
Feeding Northeast Florida is the regional food bank serving 12 counties in Northeast Florida and North Central,
Hmm.
all the way to the Gulf Coast and Levy County. We serve, that's about 8,300 miles.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a big area, the size of New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah, give it some perspective. And we serve approximately 310,000 food insecure people in that community.
So, real quickly before we dive into some of the challenges and exciting things that are happening, I know that one of the confusions. I did a tour with you. I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months ago. What an amazing facility, by the way. We'll spend some time talking about that. But a lot of people don't realize the connections because they hear, oh, there's this food bank in my community, or this has this. Of course, you got Beam out at the beaches and doing amazing work with Jeff Winkler and his team. What is the relationship that you have as it relates to all of these other resources?
So, as the regional food bank, we are a Feeding America affiliate, and we have about 495 partnerships programs. Those can be things that range from a Sulzbacher or a City Rescue or a Beam, all the way to pantries in schools, small church organizations that run pantry operations. So it's everything in between, and we're technically the food supply for
Mm.
all of those organizations. I mean, they sometimes have some supporting food assistance, but we are the provider of food to the tune of about 36 million pounds last year in our service area. It's mind-boggling, but we are at our heart a logistics and distribution business. We're trucks and drivers and routes and relationships with retailers and manufacturers, and we get food from where it is to where it needs to go.
I would highly encourage you if you are part of an organization, a community organization, a company, a business, to go pay a visit to this facility. It will blow your mind, and I'm not giving some overblown hoopah here. No, I mean to see the vast amount of food, the trucks, the process, the operation, the technology that's at play, and then the vast number of individuals every day who are volunteers helping you move the progress along. It's just staggering. So that's my plug
Well,
because I'm a fan. So
well, thank you so much.
so speaking about being a fan, there is a challenge that you all are facing, obviously, as many are facing, as Trump's bill has made it through the Senate Tuesday. All eyes are on the House, and there's a lot of concern about the SNAP cuts, how that's going to affect and the hunger crisis that's in America. So give us an understanding as it relates to you, this region. What is on the line here, and what do people need to know from your perspective?
Well, I'll start with what we do know. So, when the new administration came into office, they said they cut some funding through the Commodities Credit Corp, which was funds that came through the USDA and their TFAP program. TFAP still exists, supports commodity support for farmers and producers, but we lost funding there, which for us directly was about $850,000 worth of proteins primarily that we had anticipated and had planned for. So that was one thing. That's something that truly happened. There's another program where we buy from small minority disenfranchised farmers and pay them a fair price. It's another USDA program that's been around for a couple of years, which will end in August. That was about $1 billion worth of commodities purchase dollars nationally. Our percentage was about 1.2 million. So that goes away in August, and we will have no future funding in that. Those are the two big things that we've felt so far. That said, we still are getting TFAP funding, and the other programs seem to be maintaining. When we look at something like the potential cut to SNAP, that is a program that we can't even nationally as an organization make up for. You know, $1 from us, one meal from us is equal to 9 meals through a SNAP program. I mean, it's a highly efficient way to provide food assistance to food insecure people. Because imagine that they don't have to have trucks and drivers, and we create this whole infrastructure for the charity food system. That SNAP is literally just taking that card to a grocery store.
Yeah, and can you just give us that explanation, SNAP, because there's a lot of people who don't know what SNAP is.
So SNAP is the old food stamp program, the
Right.
Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and it looks like an ordinary debit card,
Mhm.
and those benefits are go directly to that household, and so you use them in the grocery store like anybody else. It's limited in terms of what you can use it for.
Yeah.
Some categories that are off limits, but um, it's a very dignified way to get assistance to people.
And I don't think, if you've never been food insecure, I remember when I was very young, I was living in Phoenix, Arizona, and my mom and we had to use this, and it was embarrassing. And I remember she had that feeling of shame, and so we can't disassemble the connection of shame, food insecurity, and so with that in mind, the need is so high. When we think about food insecurity here in Northeast Florida, what contributes to the rise and is contributing?
Well, we started feeling the effects in COVID, and post COVID, we've seen such impacts to rent increases that never went down, the cost of food, all of the things that we see every day.
Mhm.
That just the people that we serve tend to be paycheck to paycheck. They're working families who hit a speed bump. It might be a car repair. It might be an illness, just a multitude of things, a rent increase, and suddenly they need some assistance. That's the bulk of who we are helping. We have seen a 17% increase in the demand for food assistance, the need for food assistance over last year in our organization alone.
Just it is. I would imagine that's a stark increase in comparison to
It
previous
is
years.
it is a significant increase when at the same time we are looking at reductions in the food supply, whether it be coming from the federal programs or, some things just are efficiencies that are created by need and demand. And what we saw in COVID is that our retail partners got really good at managing their inventory, so there was less waste,
Mhm.
less of what goes into the charity food system. So it's this confluence of factors that make this a kind of uncertain and challenging time. That said, I don't want to be that person that cries wolf. In that, I know that this community supports
Yeah.
organizations like ours. I know that they step up when it's a hurricane or what we
Mhm.
saw during COVID, and we're going to find the same thing through this. We're going to find a way to support and the food insecurity in our community.
That is something that is so important, that mental mindset, just as we as individuals have to continue in hard times as well as good times, remember to remain positive, optimistic, to work hard, to be resourceful. But I also know that you must face a constant challenge of crisis fatigue.
We do. Like anybody living with uncertainty, it is challenging because it requires us to be very nimble and creative and innovative and open to to whatever comes next. I will say that when we looked at COVID and the challenges of COVID, it was almost a situation of abundance in terms of donations of food and support with big government programs that helped provide food for us to meet those needs. I think we're going to be facing the opposite here
Mm.
is that it's going to be a challenge of equitable distribution of reduced resources. And so we'll rely on the community to come help and step in, and they always do. And I think our role right now in a time of uncertainty is to make sure that we're providing the accurate information about what we know and about what we see. Cuz nobody wants people to be hungry.
Well, and I think you speak to the nemesis of so much of reacting versus responding, which is to see a headline, not read below the headline and know what's really going on. And, one of the reasons the blessings of this station, this show, and interviewing folks like you is it brings that awareness to going deeper below the headline. So if you'd like to go deeper below the headline with us, feel free. You can join the conversation with Susan King. You can call us at 904-549-2937. Also, you can email us your question at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. So, Susan, let's talk about some of the common myths about individuals and families food banks serve, because those challenges are real, but there is a definitive line and perception about the persona of folks. And I know that's got to be totally wrong.
Well, it really is. As I mentioned, we support some agencies that provide services for homeless, like Sulzbacher and Trinity Rescue, but that's a tiny portion of who we're supporting out there. It's really primarily working families.
Hmm.
We survey our agencies all the time. We know who they're dealing with, and it's just people who hit, as I always refer to them, as speed bumps. They're not poor choices in life. They are just things that sometimes we can't overcome without a little help.
And the process, people can come to you once or repeatedly, right? I mean, a lot of folks don't understand, like, oh, well, if I go get services, then I'm in the loop. But that's not true, is it?
No, and back to the point of the food bank is really this logistics warehouse distribution business. We're supporting these agencies that are the boots on the ground. We are supporting the beam that is providing rent and utility assistance to keep people in their homes, in addition to supporting them with food assistance. So, and every one of these agencies has a different plan. They're individual organizations, nonprofits with their own missions. We provide the food support to them. So, I can't speak broadly to
Sure.
to everybody, because it's really meeting people where they are at the organizational level.
You have a long storied history in this region, which we could do an entire show on itself. You're not just um, the the leader of this organization. You're also a practitioner of food production, food insecurity, and so knowing that and knowing what you lead in the organization, how are you looking ahead strategically, and what tactically is the organization doing, knowing, hey, these cuts could be coming any minute?
Well, we're always looking for alternate food sourcing. We are our Feeding Florida is our association of food banks here, 9 food banks that cover all 67 counties, of which we're very proud to be a part of. And they work very hard to get funding through the state for a program specifically that we've been doing over the last few years that purchases produce from farmers in the state of Florida that might otherwise be plowed under. So we work programmatically with those kinds of things, looking for alternate sources, always looking with an eye towards, it has to be a win-win. And in this case, supporting Florida farmers and the food going into the charitable system is an example of those kind of really great wins. But some of the things that we're doing internally, so we're getting ready. Actually, we're starting today construction on a large production kitchen in our new warehouse facility.
Yeah.
That we know that generationally people that we serve often don't know how to cook. It will be a workforce development program there where we will be training people to go out and work in institutional kind of settings, large production kitchens. But importantly, it will provide disaster recovery opportunities for us for hot meals. It will also allow us to provide healthy, nutritious meals to some of the agencies that we serve. Imagine we did this during COVID, but the ability to provide a senior that's living in a subsidized facility, housing facility, who
Mhm.
has a kitchenette, doesn't have congregate feeding on site, to be able to give them healthy, nutritious meals is really powerful, and is actually nutritionally transformational for
Yeah.
them. So we're putting in a production garden so that we now that in our new facility we can host children and field trips, that we can show people how food is grown and what's growing in Florida. The food that we're distributing, this is what it really looks like. I My past history, having some experience in farming, I realized that when people see how food is grown, they appreciate so much more what they receive from us. That's Florida grown produce. it's just a powerful connection. So
Well, and in so many cases, the excuse for us that aren't food insecure is like, oh, I don't have time. And in actuality, the research shows your food lasts longer and you actually takes less time in many cases if you're preparing that fresh food. So you're helping somebody in multiple ways. And I would be remiss if I didn't say not only is your production kitchen being built, but the space that you have. Tell us about that for organizations to be able to host events.
we are just so fortunate in this renovation that we did of the old Kinko window factory. It's about 110,000 square foot facility, and we designed it with an education center that we make available to community groups to meet. It's got great technology in it. We also have an event space that can house groups in an auditorium style for probably up to 200 and maybe 150 for a seated event. It will also be utilized as part of our production kitchen, and it'll be our packing area. Everything's multi-purpose in a food bank, but just the ability to have the space to not just accommodate our organization, but we really want to be that regional food bank. We want to be this community's food bank, and so nothing gives me greater joy than when I see groups who volunteer with us for and then host a meeting in our facility, people coming and going to the tune of about 16,000 volunteers last year. I mean, we really want this to be an kind of an open door for community members to see that it is your community food bank.
Wow, what a great story. That is good. And again, this will be the last plug, I swear. And no, I mean, when you see something that's really neat and it's in your backyard, not to mention the building is neat. I mean, the building is cool. If you're into architecture, it's a great visit. Um, you all received a $750,000 grant from Walmart and Feeding America as part of a multi-year partnership. For those that may have heard that in the news, separate from all the other things we're talking about. So put that in perspective, and also what good is going to come of that.
Well, this is a really interesting. This is the third round of this grant, and we were very fortunate to be one of the food banks selected this year for this grant. It is a partnership with Walmart and Feeding America to try to get more donations through our retail partners. Not necessarily that they will be donating more, but that we will actively be picking up when it's available.
Sure.
So that's one aspect of it. But these dollars, first 500,000 of it is specifically designated for enhancement of our existing partnerships or development of rural partnerships. This is capacity building dollars. It doesn't benefit us directly, but it allows us to buy trucks or
Yeah.
add cold storage, and so it's a pass through. But I mean, what an extraordinary opportunity! $250,000 of that is designated for us to potentially, and I say potentially because it's not a done deal yet, to open a food pantry under the Feeding Northeast floor where we will have direct contact with clients. We're going to operate this as a best practice model so that when we train our agency partners,
Mhm.
when we are shopping with clients, it'll be a client choice pantry. And we really are looking to use national best practices in this facility. So
This is incredible. Uh, I imprint upon you the concept of one up. That is, hey, one level up from the thing you do today to the next. And that is exactly what you're doing. Susan, thank you for being here today.
thank you for having me.
You are welcome.